Ready? Yeah. Yeah. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Town Commission meeting of Highland Beach. It's now 1:30 and we can get started. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Goldberg,
Present.
Commissioner Peters,
Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Present.
Mayor Moore,
Present.
Town Manager Laverty,
Present.
Town Attorney Tricidia.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if, just to remind everyone to silence your devices. And if we could please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing no changes, we can have a motion.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is presentations and we have the proposed operating budget presentation for fiscal year 2023-2024.
So I'm gonna step over. I'm gonna join David at the beginning. It was hard to kind of see things from the side. So before David starts waving his hands and walks you through all the exciting moments, I'll give you the boring intro. But again, we're proud to present this preliminary budget, this draft budget. So this is our first go through things. As we move through and walk through our budget today, there are a few items that remain unresolved or not completely clarified yet, and that's a lot around capital. So you'll see stuff with discretionary sales tax, capital projects, water, sewer. We're still working through that. Public Works, they're not here, had put together their first blush at a capital plan. It looks pretty good, so we're trying to then quantify that and get into things like meter replacements and the like. But we're budgeting this year to protect our 3 miles of paradise. So that's kind of our theme. And the good part about it is our financial health continues to be strong. It continues to be in a very healthy position financially, even with our fund balance that we are using to help pay for or to bring down the total cost of construction on the fire station. So not only are we financially healthy, we're also financially healthy moving into some uncertainty in those economic conditions that we've been foreshadowing for a while. Inflation seems to be cooling, but what does that mean in the overall market economy, cost of living, the labor market, contracts? So all of those positions, we can handle those movements. The efforts of this commission to stay on the 5-year forecast in our financial plan has put us and maintained our strong financial position. And the best part about it, which we keep on telling you, is you do not have to raise your millage rate. Now, people will ask that balanced with the increase of property rates, which will come into telling the story today, and I'll let David do a lot of that storytelling, is that yes, our property values increased 13.2%, which is great. It helps us move through the implementation of fire without potentially going further into our reserves to balance that. So right now we're presenting you a balanced budget with no millage increase and no support from the reserves to prop that up. So that's a good start at the beginning of this budget start, as hopefully this is working today. No.
Marshall, do you want us to ask questions as we go through it, or you want us to wait?
Yeah, I think David and I are good with that. Just, pepper us with questions and we'll go from there. Again, we have a 3.5875 millage rate. We're not changing that. Again, we are projecting to hold that for the next 5 years. So everything we're talking about are the decisions you are making financially all fit within the millage rate. Now, I want to stress this, and we'll get into this a little bit later, total millage rate. So what that is you're going to see a slight reduction in your debt service millage rate, but because of the Synovus loan for the construction of the fire station, we pledged general fund non-ad valorem revenue sources. So we're accounting, if you will, for that debt service within the general fund. So your debt service millage goes down almost proportionally, your operating goes up, but it never increases above that 3.5875. Again, we have not pledged any cash reserves to brace or support the budget. We have traditionally over the years had a small amount, which is de minimis, if you will, on how much we had to use to kind of as a stopgap as we work through a few items. Fire rescue budget, $12 million, right? So usually we're around 5-6 million, we're up to 12. Again, 4 million of that is for construction, other specialized equipment. We're going to operate 2 fire departments, if you will, for a period of time. You're going to have the Delray contract. We have 7 months of that contract. Chief Joseph and his team are going to be bringing staff on before that. So you're going to have a 3-month overlap. We're almost running 2 departments for a short period of time, which kind of pushes up the cost of fire on top of the construction. So we're going to be bringing in 24 employees that'll be prorated over 7. And again, we haven't hired any of these folks. So David did his best to kind of find a average, if you will, for each of those positions. And that'll shake out as we bring folks in. Our guess is we're going to be bringing in some more experienced captains, driver engineers, paramedics to be balanced with a few younger folks, but we want to be able to hit the ground running with folks that know what's going on. And then also we're going to start talking over the next few months. You could call it a sinking fund. David's calling it establish a fire truck fund. So maybe in the fund balance, because you'll see we have about $1.2 million unassigned. We begin to establish small amounts each year for the future replacement of that truck. So when we get to having to replace a piece of apparatus, say 6, 8, 10 years down the road, we have a little pot of money set aside for that. So future commissions won't have to then borrow the money or have to come up with some means to do it. We will plan for that replacement. Again, keeping consistent with that 5-year model.
How have you, related to the fire, how have you handled the true up as it relates to your plans for the year?
Well, true up is an interesting piece. As you know, we're still working through some relationship hurdles with Delray as we separate from service with them. But also we still have some unresolved financial matters on prior true ups that I know that the state attorney general has been asked to step in and help. And you hear like the JLAC, which is the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee. So that committee, again, that's where I testified in February, and they decided to take an audit to Delray to determine have they provided the correct information. So we don't know how that'll shake out. We believe, and I'm going to rely on a lot of David's good work, along supported with our outside accounting firm, that we are probably owed some money somewhere in there. How much and when that is, as far as anticipating those receipts, I don't know. We'll probably have to talk about that over the next 6 to 8 months, what our strategies will be. I know that I've worked with Glenn on strategies. We'll begin to start sharing what our options are. But the state general auditor auditor general has made that commitment to leadership of the legislator that they should have something wrapped up September, October. So we'll know how that relationship is going to shake out.
Have you taken a conservative approach to the budgeting as it relates to those issues?
Yeah, David and I generally take a pretty conservative. We have not accounted for any of the return of cash on that. So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. Again, we are up to, this is important. I think you should know, we have not missed a payment, a service payment, the monthly payments to Delray. We have not missed a payment. So we're not in arrears on anything. It's just our dispute technically that's been on record as of 2 fiscal year true ups. And this will be the 3rd one coming up. Those are the 2 items, the 21-22 true ups, and then some of their EMS payments they can't flush out. But those are the issues that are held in abeyance, if you will, until we get an opinion from the auditor and or we go into some type of action with or against Delray to kind of resolve these matters. I'd prefer a partnership to resolve it, but you know.
And I would add, not only is it a conservative, but there's also $100,000 that's pegged, right? In the general fund balance policy, which was a true up
Sure.
that we received. So there's $100,000 that's set aside in the general fund balance that is for future true ups.
And we may need to do that as if this elevates, if you will, and to set aside some money to resolve disputed amounts. So the court, arbitrators, everybody knows that, we are accounting for this, but we truly believe what we've stated is their overcharge and some should be returning to the town. So we'll see how that works out, but that's the big one, is the fire one. Other big items, again, as you know, most of our costs are salary and benefits. We're assuming a health insurance increase of 25%. We have met with our broker until we bid that out. We don't know, but he doesn't believe it should be 25%. Part of that is Humana, our current provider of healthcare, is moving out of the marketplace. They will maintain or continue some customers, but a lot of us are concerned that, do we want to be the last marketplace customer as they phase into different types of products and our customer service will fall off? So we're thinking some of the other players in the market are going to be aggressive to get our business, if you will. And we're hoping that, we should see something, hopefully 10%, 15% versus the 25%. So we'll make that adjustment. We're working with the FOP through the collective bargaining process. I said per 5-year forecast, that is the measure by which we are in good faith bargaining. This is what we've planned for, this is what we've anticipated, and that's what we are hopefully working with the union to get there. We've settled with the PBA per the 5-year forecast, and then the non-union employees management. Again, there's a 5-year forecast for that. So those are all tracking. General insurance that I kind of hit the panic alarm. In total, we only went up 35%.
That's excellent.
Property went up 60, but our whole package only went up 35. So we got some reductions. Workers' comp came down a little bit. So that was good news. That I've never said there's good news about a 35% increase, but in the marketplace, that's pretty good news.
How does that relate to like the 3-year trail, that percent increase?
We haven't been seeing, we saw a big reduction. The mayor, was that last year or the year before, worked
I think
through.
it's 2 years ago. now.
2 years ago, we worked our way out of the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust and went to Brown and Brown, another public sector company. There's only like 2 or 3 of them. They gave us a better price, so we saw a huge reduction. That's slowly starting to build back up, and then now all providers are saying, like I said last meeting, it's going up and it's going to get worse before it gets worse. So we'll be anticipating this over the next couple of years, looking at 30 to 40 to 50% increases if this holds. But again, we're great that the workers' comp and some of those other issues did come down. So that's good news. This year we have an additional transfer as part of fire coming out of the building fund, and that is for fire marshal community risk reduction. And that's that relationship between the building department and fire to ensure safety of all of our condo structures. Because as you recall, we basically said there's no cost to condos. So if you will, through this process, the building department, which is supported by fees from all structures, will help with the community risk reduction, fire marshal annual inspections and all that stuff will be carried. In the budget for building as we get to, we're still holding that discount. So everybody's still getting the 10% discount in Highland Beach on their permits as well.
One other question on insurance. Did having our own fire department physically building, how has that affected our insurance at all? Or has it not affected?
No, it's nothing at this point. We might see something later, but nothing immediately on our insurance rates. Water and sewer rates, again, we're keeping the 8% this year. That's per that market study that we had. So you know what?
I have a
Sure.
question before you
Sure,
go to the next
absolutely.
slide. With respect to the transfer for the fire marshal, is that how it's usually handled, or?
A lot of
are you going to
communities
be
do it.
Changing it later?
A lot of communities do that. So yes. And there's a lot of links in there for doing all the plan reviews for fire inspection, going into the buildings, ensuring safety, this and that. So there is a relationship there. And I know that Boca does it. I think Delray does it. A lot of these other communities recognize that support from permits for the fire marshal, fire rescue services.
So in the financial data that we've seen previously, Did it, or did it contemplate handling it in this manner or
This
putting?
this is the first. We don't have one yet. So this is next year. We're gonna start having a fire department. So
Okay,
this is the first time we're recognizing it. And this is our way of kind of rebalancing and kind of recognizing being a full service community, what these things look like for us. So this is one of those items.
And I think it's appropriate that the building department pay their share because you try to keep them in their own silos.
I'm
and
sure
they-
Jeff behind me is twitching a little bit, but
No, I think
you
that's
know,
really
it's,
appropriate.
we're doing well. He gets it.
Right.
He recognizes it. He's working a lot with that group. So Jeff is spending a lot of time with fire. And I think there's a lot of it with the recertification program, which we are doing at no cost for the condos as well, has a big element of fire to that. The enforcement arm, Adam's with us today. So the enforcement arm that goes with it to ensuring the structures and our ordinances are enforced on those elements will come into play. So that's kind of that balance between those two departments. I think it works quite well. And it helps kind of mitigate some of those costs amongst revenue streams, if you will. But again, what did we accomplish? Again, fire department has been the predominant activity that we've seen, or what you would see outward from this organization. We completed design, got Kaufman Lynn to start construction. We acquired our new rescue vehicle, the new ladder truck. Again, we commenced that construction. We got an assistant chief of EMS. We got an assistant chief fire marshal, that community risk reduction personnel. Those two assistant chiefs are part-time, though they'll ramp up in the next budget cycle to full-time. We completed the updates to the water rate study, sanitary sewer rehabilitation. We spent a lot of time on it. We really haven't made headway. But we're gonna be working on that. Now, the lift stations, you see 2 and 3, and I put in 24. A lot of that's been moving. We did get that appropriation. So kudos to all. Highland Beach received its first state appropriation. And that will allow us to complete a big share of the lift station project. Was that lift station 2 or 3? So 3 is the one we're doing with the appropriation, and then it'll trickle over to 2. We rehabilitated well 6. We fixed the turbo pumps and VFDs, not very exciting, but it's exciting to us. Kind of runs the plant, the machinery behind it. We did a storm repair in Bellito. We settled the PBA contract for the next 3 years, or 3.5 years, if you were 3 and 4 months, 3 years and 4 months. FOP, we're still working on that, and hopefully we can find some resolution there. We've kind of really had our 23 recognized budget year, which is 22-23, the first year of the Marine unit. Chief Hartman's got that going. We got accredited in that period of time. The building recertification ordinance and program, financial forecast, that 5-year, the new website, the public meetings of FDOT, and some of the initial planning and fund balance policy updates. So you guys have been very, very busy. And as we look forward, what are we doing in 24 per the strategic priority plans? We're going to finish that fire department. We're going to complete construction. We're going to procure the rest of all of that equipment, Lucas chest compression systems, the SCBA, which supplies all the air. We're going to recruit the rest of that personnel, operational procedures and policies and trainings. Get Dr. Cohen in here more often to start with the training program and really launch this quite successfully in May of 24. Marine accessory structures ordinance should get there in 24. Planning board spending a lot of time working through it. They're going back out to go see things in the site, see field conditions per the ordinance that they've been contemplating some more. Entry signs, those are in the design. We hope to construct those in the next fiscal year. Rehabilitates well 8. FDOT construction, we finish the fire station. A1A goes under construction for the next year. So it's going to be busy construction period here in Highland Beach. We're getting the final steps on the beach dune management study to kick that off so they can start doing the field work and then deliver in early 24. You guys should get the results of that. What kind of recommendations they'll pose to you and the Natural Resource Advisory Board. As we heard at the last meeting, we really want to jump back into the zoning density and district evaluation. So we'll start that. David's mantra here, he wants the financial accounting department to focus on accuracy, speed, and reporting, including the audit. And we're going to work on HR personnel policies and procedures. So those are some of the big items that we're looking at. So this is the big slide. Again, 3.5875 mils. We are holding the millage rate flat as we accomplish some of these big projects that you're looking at predominantly focused on fire. We knew that that was a big cost and was going to be a big push. And this is the budget year. And you'll hear a lot of this from David's presentation. This is the budget year. There are some unknowns when it comes to fully implementing fire on the cost side. So Chief Joseph has done his best to conservatively estimate what he needs. So we have it at what, 12.3 million, 12.2 million? It could come in less. We just don't know until we really put our boots on the ground and really go wheels hot on the operation. And then we'll really see what our cost structure looks like. So we have some big estimates, maintenance. The vehicles coming in from Delray that are ours, what condition are they and how much maintenance? So we have some unknowns that we're gonna just try to do our best guessing. Again, we don't have the best data on service data. So we're making some hopefully safe assumptions on the level of service and the number of calls. And that will change as we go there. But again, the biggest thing I guess you would see is the slight reduction in debt service. You'll be matched by a slight increase in the operating millage. And that's because of the debt for the Synovus bank loan is not technically in the debt service millage because we did not pledge ad valorem. We did an appropriations, budget to appropriate is the type of loan product we took. So that's why you'll see the debt service now in the general fund versus the debt service millage. But again, 3.5875, we're holding it. We're recommending that is your maximum tentative millage rate. There's no need to go beyond that. And like we said, over the next few months after David steps up and tells the story, you know, we're going to start fine tuning this as we go through. So your next presentation will have a little bit more clarity on capital. We'll have maybe some more clarity on insurance and healthcare. We'll have a little more clarity on the FOP. We'll have a little more clarity on a couple of these other cost centers. And then as we've moved through this in the years, the numbers just gets a little bit better as we go forward into the year. And some of the things that we're estimating will become harder numbers as the year moves on. And with that, I am going to kick it over to David.
Testing. Okay, I'm on. Sorry about that. Yeah, so what you're seeing here, this slide here, I think we're on page 8 here. So what you're seeing here is, you're seeing this right here is just your historical, right, assessed values. The line represents the percentage change. So really, right, from 2019 to 2020, that looks like it's about a little bit about 4.8% increase in taxable values. We go from 21 to 22. We see a little bit decrease in there, right? And then 22 to 23, right? There's that big 13%. You know, between those two time periods, that's a huge increase. But you know what? This preliminary, remember, this is preliminary. This is a June 1st. We'll get another one July 1st. Okay. But right now, this is what they're seeing. So a little bit decrease. Okay. But these 2 years here were 2 major years. That's what you're looking at there. If I can draw your attention here, this is what we were talking about here. So you see this line here for 2024 represents the entire millage. Okay. You see that we're taking our operating millage from 3.2294 down to 3.290. I'm sorry, 3.2190. Well, you can also see here that we added the fire debt service there. Meanwhile, the water debt millage goes down, and I'll show you that when we get farther down. The reason why is because we pay off a huge chunk of our debt service for the water fund, about $369,000. In 2024, we don't have to pay anymore. 2025, we don't have to pay anymore because, you know, we've been paying obviously principal and interest. So that's always a good thing. Okay, big picture now. Okay, so now I'm on slide 10, big picture, right? So in 2023, our general fund revenues were approximately $15.6 million. We did some budget amendments, right? Matter of fact, our last meeting, right? We did some major budget amendments, primarily for the fire department, right? And so now that amended budget for 2023 is about $20.7 million. Well, what we're looking at for the general fund right now is at about $21.1 million. Okay, but of that $21.1 million is $4+ million just related to the construction. Okay, just to give you just some scale as to how much the construction side is pulling this year's budget. But here's kind of, this right here just kind of summarizes it all right here on page 11. See the little arrow that I did there? You can probably see it on yours. It's on the right-hand side, right? So here's what I want you to notice. I want you to see appropriation from reserves. That's when we were using fund balance, right? Because remember, our plan was to use excess reserves to pay for the construction plus a loan, right? And so now you can see 2024 is that transition time period, right? That's why I put there. There you see in column C, right? We go 0 there, but look at other financing sources. That is our loan, okay? And you can see where we start making that transition now. We go from using that to now using our loan, okay? But at the end of the day, the overall increase, you can see that 92% of that 35%, listen, for all intents and purposes, almost 100% of that entire increase is related, obviously, to the bank loan, right? Now, what was the other thing that hit us? Do we all recall the waste management contract, right? You know, so that was the other item that hit us on the revenue side. If you recall, we have the trash waste management came back. They said, you know, it's going to be like 100% increase, right, in their rates. That was the other outlier. But here's what's important to note. Note that the reduction from appropriation from reserves right here is 0, what we're anticipating right now. Okay. What you're seeing here on slide 12 is a high level. Remember, high level, right? This right here is the same operating expenses that we just saw, right? Almost a 35% increase here, right? Now, again, what I'm doing is now what we're on the expenditure side. So here's what we have to do. Well, what I have to do as your finance director is I have to match my expenditures with my sources of money, right? Okay, David, you're going to spend this amount of money. Where are you getting it from, right? So this is the expenditure side, okay? And you can see that operating expenses went down. See the operating expenses there went down, but personnel services went up. Guess what that is? That's the transition from going from Delray to our own fire department. Remember, we're going to be holding this year, this year's a transition year. We're holding 2 sets of fire departments for a short period of time. Okay. So for a short period of time, we have Delray as we start to bring on our own staff. And so that's what you're seeing there. That's why I said in the second bullet point there, adding additional fire rescue staffing beginning in March 2024. That's what happens in that. And so again, now I break down from a big view. Now I go down a little bit more detail, right? So remember, we started at a 30,000 foot level. Now we just went from a 15,000 foot level. Now I'm going down to probably about a 5,000 foot level. These are all your departments in your general fund. Okay, so you can see town manager, town commission, legal, public work, shared services, all that. And again, you can see that outlier there. You see that outlier there under fire rescue, building construction, right? That's the outlier there. Okay. General fund balance, right? As we talked, at our last meeting that we had, you'll recall that we transferred, right? We transferred money. You remember, I needed to come to you for a budget amendment, right? We did that. And then the next item on the agenda was, well, I got to write a check for a couple $1 million to borrow the construction or to pay for the construction of it. And so preliminary, it remains healthy, right? We have 20%. Oh, we have 20% right now in unassigned, right? Now, keep in mind, we also have another 39% in what we call budget stabilization. Okay? We have another 39% in disaster recovery. And this right here, in talking with our fire marshal, he brought up the idea that, hey, as we go along, we should try to almost like a sinking fund, because you know what, those fire engines are very, very expensive. So you know what, let's not get into year 10 and have to do something. Let's be responsible and let's start putting money on
I think
aside.
that's an excellent
Yeah.
idea, because when we need the money, at least it will be there. I mean, we may have to do a referendum still,
Yeah.
but at least the money will be sitting. There won't be an issue of trying to find the money.
Right, that's
It's a great
correct.
idea.
Yes, sir.
Could you just go back one slide?
Absolutely.
Could you just comment on our actual legal expenses estimated to come in at 94,000, we're going back up to 200?
Yep.
Could you just comment on the reason?
Sure. A lot of that legal expense was related to the Delray, okay, contract. Okay. Well, right now and some of that is related to that. But next year, so what happens is typically what you want to do is we will now step aside and we will let the JLAG audit run its route, right? And then chances are we will probably get back into hopefully negotiations with that. So right now, preliminary budget, I thought that on a conservative basis, right? I thought on a conservative basis, you know what? I'll keep it at $200,000 this year. So that was my reasoning for that amount. Yep.
I have a question on the
Yes.
general fund slide. So if you advance one more.
This one.
So I just want to clarify, so the true general fund balance is that 12 million.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
And so we've allocated, what do you call that 6.2 million? I mean, that is a portion of the general fund
Mhm.
that we have set aside for the build out of the fire rescue.
That's correct.
So that, what do you call that?
You
Is
would
that
call that
called
like an
restricted or something?
encumbrance, an encumbrance,
encumbrance.
right?
So I just, in my mind, I would have put it under the fund balance policy, because it's another, that 6.2 million, we can't gloss over, that is 6.2 million in savings that we have allocated for the fire rescue.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I just want to emphasize, like you have been saying, we have a very, healthy fund balance. To me, I would call it the 12 million. We have 12 million
Right.
in fund balance. 6.2 is the savings that we have set aside for the fire rescue.
Yep.
And I guess, can you explain what the difference is between the surplus that you're calling 392,000
Sure.
versus the unassigned, the
Yeah,
1.2 million?
The surplus, so the data that you're looking at right now, so when I go back a slide, let's go back to this slide here, right? Okay, so I'm on slide number 13, right? So we have our budget, right? I have my estimated actuals. See 2023 column B as in boy? Okay, I'm estimating what I think we're going to be at. Some items on a straight line basis, others that I know, right? So I sit there and I go, okay, if we go, and again, the data I'm looking at is through April, okay? And so if I continue going forward at the same rate, okay, then I'm prepared that, hey, at the end of the day, at September 30th, I think that we're gonna have left over about $392,000.
Okay, that's excellent. Okay, this
Yeah.
is something that I ask about every year.
Yep.
Yes.
And to me, this helps answer the level of conservatism that we have in the budget, which I think you guys do a really excellent job of building in some conservatism, because it allows for a little additional cushion. So to me, that surplus deficit is stuff that you don't want to quite yet put into unassigned because the year's not finished yet. And it's your cushion to allow for, you know, a soft landing for this fiscal year that we're currently in. But it sounds like your expectation is as of September 30th, 2023, our unassigned will be at about 1.6 million as
Yep.
opposed to the 1.2. So not only have we set aside 6.2 million for fire rescue, we've set aside 2.5 million for budget stabilization, which is just, it's for cash flow purposes to make sure, you know, we have enough cash flow, a buffer for cash flow. Disaster recovery, that's in the event of a storm, that will more than cover any deductibles that we have for insurance and should also cover debris removal and things like that. The 100,000 is that fire rescue that we had mentioned earlier. That was from a previous true up that we got money back and we decided to hold it in the fund balance in case we had to pay it back in a future year. So that's an additional level of conservatism. We'll see if that has to be paid or not, but if it doesn't, that will move over to unassigned.
Right.
And then we still have 1.2 million in unassigned, which has no,
Right.
no level of expectation. It's just extra. So,
Yeah, you know, and what we do every year, what you'll see here is you'll see that, right, again, what are my expenditures? What are my revenues, right? To balance them, right, there should be zero, right? Now, as we go through the year, projects shift, right? Vacancies are kind of left open. It's hard to fill vacancies, right? A lot of those things contribute to a surplus, you know, at the end of the year. So, right.
yeah. So, yeah, thank you for managing our fund very well. And I very much agree with the approach that y'all have taken in budgeting, and that results in this
Right.
type of healthy fund balance.
Now, everyone's going to ask me, okay, David, how did we do compared to your 5-year forecast?
I want to know.
Right. Everyone wants to know, David, you did this 5-year forecast. You ran it out there. This is what you thought we would be at. Well, I was off by 0.5% in general. But at the end of the day, no, but at the end of the day, in my opinion, I think what the outlier there, when I did the 5-year, when I did our 5-year forecast, now this right here is year one of the 5-year forecast. Remember, we did a 5-year forecast. We went out 5 years. I threw everything in there, including the kitchen sink, but I didn't account for doubling of our solid waste contract. I just didn't foresee that. Okay. And so really that's what that outlier there was. So right now I would say, you know what? And it's easy, right? I mean, you can be on track on a 5-year forecast, right? Year one is great to be on track, right? It really depends on how you're going to land in year 5, you know, but at the end of the day, with all the moving parts that are going on with this year, contracts, bringing on 24 FTEs for the fire, balancing both the Delray contract and our new staff, the construction, the contract negotiations with the various unions, taking all those insurance increases, taking all those things into light. Our 2024 preliminary budget for expenditures for the general fund, we are saying at this point right now is a little bit over 17 million. We projected out at this time, we would be at 16.9. So we're a little bit over. And so, but at the end of the day, it's there. Basically what this should show you is that we are keeping a pulse on all the major moving parts.
And this is an excellent result. And, you know, that's the point of the 5-year plan is as each year advances, you update your assumptions. And my expectation would have been that you would have been further off than
Yeah.
just 0.5%. So I think
Right.
this is
Right.
a big success. And, I think it just, this was really added value when you came on board doing this 5-year plan. And, I continue doing it. We are on track.
Yep,
This is
no,
excellent.
absolutely. And that was the goal of the department, right? Speed, accuracy, and let's try to peer around that future corner as much as possible. And so that was definitely the goal. So now, so after all that, we're done with the general fund. Okay, now we tip into the discretionary sales tax. The reason why we have a separate fund for discretionary sales tax is because it is restricted, right? It's restricted funds, right, that the state of Florida that we're entitled to. So as you can see, so 2023, we were at $430,000. That was our estimated income that was going to come in, right? We're going to get 287,000. Right now I'm looking at column A on page 16 on the top left side. And so, right, so I thought that we were going to get my conservative estimate through April, but I'm forecasting it through September. I think we're going to be around $340,000. Again, the overall health of the state of Florida and the economy. Okay, that's what that's a result of. Yes, sir.
Well, why are the investment earnings down based upon the increase?
Investment earnings down. That's a very good question. And the reason why is because keep in mind that I'm projecting that we're going to have about $6 million less in cash because of the fire, right? You remember, we're using cash. We're using our own cash to pay for the fire department. So all of our cash, it's called the pooled cash system. All of our cash goes in there. And so I'm anticipating that we're going to spend. And although interest is increasing on savings, I wanted to be conservative on the revenue side of life. Really, I hope that I blow that out of the water, but that's really a good thing. I just wanted to be conservative with it. Yeah. So at the end of the day, here you have both your top and your bottom line. You have your revenue on the top brackets up here. Here's all your revenue, right? Remember, if I'm going to spend this on the bottom, okay, I need to match it up with where am I going to get that money from? Okay. Now you can see that on the next slide, you can see that we're going to have a healthy ending fund balance in this fund. Okay. If we go to the next slide here, I'm on slide number 17. Here you can see these are the projects, right? Projects tend to shift into fiscal years, right? We plan just like we're doing now, right? We're planning on a garage door replacement or a library sewer rehab or a fence replacement. These are all things that we're planning on doing. And so at the end of the day, some of those projects shifts.
And some of them, the scope on some of those will change as well, as we were saying that, working with Pat and Sergio, they're trying to fine tune the capital budget to really know what we need. This is our, first blush at it. Here's some projects we knew that we kind of needed.
Right.
We'll test those out against certain assumptions to say, do we really need this project? Does it make sense? How much is it? So that's going to get better with each presentation, and that discretionary sales tax will give you a better number as we move forward.
Yeah.
Because now we have the appropriation, so changes some of the dynamic a little bit. So
Right. Right.
those will get a little bit better with each presentation.
I have a question. Earlier you had said there was a small portion was pledged from the ad valorem tax.
Small portion was a pledge.
Is there,
Yeah, so,
is that in
so,
the millage?
well, our,
Debt.
our water, so our debt on our SRF loans is a millage covenant. Okay, so we have to apply a millage rate as a covenant for the water side of life. Okay, and so as we pay down, and we'll get into when we get to the water and sewer fund,
Mhm.
I'll show you that when we pay that down, that obviously drops as we pay the principal.
Okay.
Quick
Thank
question.
Yes.
Just remind me what the block means.
Flock, I believe that is hold on.
There's, we approved, was that, Chief, about a month ago, and that's the LPR cameras, the 5 LPR cameras, north side, south side, and each of the main roads. The foundation made a commitment to buy 2 live stream cameras from the same vendor at the north and south side. they're doing it. Part of the deal is we'll pay the maintenance cost after the first year of install for the 2 live stream cameras. So then we'll be able to have that security protocol in and out of town. What's going on, what's happening. So that's the flock cameras.
All right, so now we're switching. We just got done with the general fund. Let me just recap a little bit. So the general fund is construction, fire. It's maintaining the Delray as well as bringing on 24 FTEs. It's maintaining our millage. Our operating millage rate went down. Our water millage rate went down, but we added a debt service millage rate that's part of the fire department. So that's what bumped us back up, okay? So that's the general fund, and then you have our discretionary sales tax. That's money that we estimate from sales and use taxes throughout the state of Florida, as the state of Florida continues to be robust and healthy. Every municipality in the state of Florida benefits from that. And we have our estimated expenditures, our capital, what we're going to be spending those funds on. That's the discretionary sales tax fund. So now we're going into our third fund, and that's the building department. This right here is our revenues. You can see that our interlocal agreement with Gulfstream continues to benefit this fund. Okay. You can also see that our charges for services continue to outpace our estimate as construction continues to be robust. Rehabilitations. Yes, my dear.
Why is there a reduction in your preliminaries for 2024?
20
With your charges for services from your actuals for 2023?
So 2023, I'm trying to be a little bit conservative.
Are you, was that consideration specifically for any particular service? I was interested with the Gulfstream, the interlocal agreement. Did you anticipate less, or for the town? Less?
No, I mean, right now you can see charges for services. We're maintaining, if you recall, we're maintaining our rates.
Mhm.
We're maintaining the discount to Highland Beach customers. My charges for service number is more of a estimate to looking at, right? So you can see that, hey, I budgeted 1.6 million for 2023, right? My estimated actuals for 2023, we're going to be at about 2.054 million. Okay, I was
Right.
conservative, right? But you know what? I want to be wrong on the right side, right? I want to be high on my expenses. I want to be low on my revenue, so we can all have a good day. So
So Highland Beach and the Gulfstream charges are included in that top
Yes.
line. Is there
Yes.
anything else included in that top line? It's just the Highland Beach and the
Yep.
Gulfstream. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So to me anyway, so when I look at, if you remember, right, I've got to balance my expenditures with my revenue.
Mhm.
So really my charges for service are, you can almost say that it's kind of a plug figure to balance, to be honest with you. But look at our fines and our fines and forfeitures are obviously coming down. I was very conservative with that, our investments are doing actually very well. I estimated we're at 18,000. We're going to be at 73,000 by the end of this year. Again, I wanted to be conservative with that. Interlocal agreement stayed the same. And right now we're not anticipating to need to pull any reserves. But if we look at the expenditure side of life, you can see that the expenditure side of this department, you can see that operating expenses, we're at about 7.5%. What I anticipated there. Personnel expenses, that dropped down a little bit. It includes a 5% overall rate increase for cost of living. But in this case here, there were some personnel shifts that occurred, which really brought that down. As you can see here, personnel, right? I budgeted 762. I think I'm going to be at $652,000 this year, column B. And then column C, my preliminary budget is $716,000. It is a decrease from when you compare it to column A.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I put that little legend up there, right? C minus A. And so, and you can also see that we also added our transfers, right? That additional transfers for the Marshall Community Risk Reduction, right? So we know that that's coming down the pipe. So this is our building fund. It matches our overall, because of the method that we do, this hybrid method of having cap gov, right? So, you know, we have the right amount of staff in this department as inspections go up, our cap gov government goes up, the expenditure on that side. As it goes down, that also goes down. So it's a nice mix. How did we do in this fund? Now I'm on page 20. David, when you did your 5-year forecast, how did you do? Again, I'm a little bit, so what I had anticipated was about $1.9 million for total expenditures. Right now, the preliminary budget's about 1.918, so I'm less than 1% off on this one.
Good.
Yeah, well, you know what, let's see how I get at year 5, but this
That's
one here was.
only $17,000.
I know, right.
So, I mean,
Right, so again, the main takeaway here is that we are on track, right, with our 5-year budget in this first year, okay? Now, let's get to the water, right? Water and sewer. We're almost at the finish line. We only got water and sewer left and then a summary, so we're almost there. And then, so right now I'm on 21. So now let's look at the water and sewer, right? My revenue numbers anticipate a 8% increase in our water rates as planned. You can see that, look at column A, I know the inflation increased and I know investment earnings have also increased, right? Interest rates have increased. We've done very well with our investments, as you can see. I was being very ultra conservative, right? And so we're at I'm anticipating that we'll have $135,000. I just jumped it up. I wanted to be a little bit more conservative. Although, yes, it's a 382% increase from 2023. This year, I just wanted to be conservative with our rates of interest.
good job.
Yeah, well,
It's a big increase.
no, I can't take any of that credit. But anyway, so again, but right now we are anticipating an appropriation from reserves in column C, you can see that, but it is a reduction, right? This year, we budgeted 582,000. So far, we didn't have to use any, okay? So far, we're not having to use any. But in order to balance this budget, my appropriation for reserves, I need about $393,000. But you'll see why in the next slide. Remember, I got to balance revenue with my expenditures, right? So now let's go to the expenditure. Oh, before we do that, this is the best slide. This slide here, let me show you what this is saying right here. So this is this is slide number 22. So look at, compared to the prior year, FY 22, water usage is up 23% through the first 4 cycles. So I know this is a lot of data here. So look at what I have here. I've got I got the fiscal year here. I got the cycles here. Here are the months. Here's the gallons. If I were to total up 1, 2, 3, 4 cycles, I would have 173 million gallons, right? Now let's compare these 4 cycles to where we're currently at, these 4 cycles here. So I'm from 173, I'm at 200, almost 214,000. I'm a 23% increase in gallons in consumption. Same thing on the irrigation side. Irrigation side, I'm not as much. I'm 5% up on irrigation through our cycle 4, right? But we know that the next 2 cycles on irrigation, right? You'll start to see that go up. Matter of fact, look at the history of it, right? You can see, right? In 2022, we're at 10 million gallons, 8 million gallons, 7 million gallons. April, May, we jump up to 10 million gallons, 11 million gallons, 13 million gallons. So I'm expecting that to continue on. But right now, through cycle 4, we're at 5% as compared to last year at the same time, and 23% compared to last year at the same time.
What do you think accounts for that? Is it the construction?
Construction, not so much, but it can.
Mhm.
I contribute this to meter replacements. A meter replacement program. See, meters don't run faster when they get older. It's a lot like me, right? I don't run faster as I get older, right? Matter of fact, I run slower as I get older, right? And that's what a meter does. So what we've implemented here at our town is a meter replacement program. Matter of fact, Siemens did a study. And their study said that on average, a water meter loses 0.5% of accuracy every year through the first 10 years, and then it flattens out. Okay. And so at the end of the day, that's why what you want to try to do is you want to try to replace about 10% of your meter population per year, right? Get all your meters, get a list of them, see when they were put in, and you start at the top line. When was this meter put in? And so it's really come to help us. But
I have a question about the
Yes.
prior slide. So the top line charges for services.
Yep.
The column B estimated actual 3,029,000 compared to the budgeted
Yep.
3,065,000. So why is that? Why are the estimated actuals down? Or is it just because we don't have the last two bills yet?
yeah, we don't have the last two, right?
Okay,
You can see here, right, you can see here that, let's say for irrigation, for example, right? Irrigation starts to really ramp up in those last two cycles. Cycle 5 and 6 really tend to ramp up. Cycles 5 and 6, cycle 5 tends to run June and July. People tend to leave on the water side. People tend to have left. Now, my estimate here for my estimate right here for this column B is just a conservative estimate. I'm just trying to be ultra conservative on my revenue side. Sorry, let me go
okay.
back.
So you're not taking into account the increase in. the
Right, yeah,
gallons.
right. But I am taking it into increase, not in here, not in where I think we're gonna be at column B, my estimated actuals. I mean, I believe that we are gonna beat our 2023 preliminary budgets. I just want to be conservative. And so when I take that into consideration, I think 2024, with that increase that I'm seeing, I think we're.
Okay, so you're counting for the increase in usage in your preliminary 2024,
Yes.
but your estimated actuals, you're doing some straight line.
Yeah, I'm just
thing.
doing
Okay.
a straight line.
Okay, but you don't think we're gonna come short of what our projections were?
Not right now.
correct?
Now,
Okay.
the next one, this is preliminary, right? I'll have another cycle in there. Matter of fact, I'll have cycle 5 in there, right? And I'll be able to tell you exactly where we're gonna be.
Well, then this says that when we set the water sewer rates and we estimated how much uses there would be, so we knew how much to set it, we're pretty good.
Yeah, right. Again, there are obviously a lot of variables in that. You want to look at it over time. You want to look at seasonality, obviously. The town of Highland Beach has severe seasonality, right? I mean, we see the swings, we see usage start to go down in the 4 and 5th, and I'm sorry, probably 5th and 6th cycles, but then we start to see irrigation go up, right? And so, yeah, and so again, we'll keep an eye on that. I just think that for preliminary, I just wanted to do I did a lot of straight line on the revenue, right? I didn't want to take into consideration, I didn't want to be aggressive on my revenue projections. I wanted to be ultra conservative on my revenue, just to kind of say, hey, where are we at? And to be honest with you, we're in the ballpark there. When you consider
Yeah.
3.065 to 3.29,
Yeah.
you know. I say I'd rather come back to you at our next meeting and go, hey, look, we blew that out of the water, right? So.
No
that's-
pun intended.
Right, yeah. Probably was. So now our expenditures, David, why do we, need? So we just looked at let me back up. We just looked at the revenue side of life on the water. Now we're going to the expenditure side of life on the water. Okay, so we see an overall 5% increase in salaries and wages. We are seeing in our operating expenditures, chemicals, materials, things like that, we are starting to see inflationary bite at that. Okay, so that's why my preliminary numbers seem, I'm going up almost 30% of my operating expenditures. We're starting to see that, right? We're anticipating gas is going to be increasing, right? We're anticipating that. And so, and we go through a lot of chemicals here, obviously. But here's the good news, right? The good news is that look at the debt service, right? We had planned this out. So our debt service is going from $1.54 million in column A under debt service. It's going to 1.180 for 2024. And
And
so that's really helpful.
Do you expect us to be able to meet the goal of no longer transferring in 2020? I think 2025 was the
Yep.
target.
Yep,
You-
yep,
you're
yep, yep.
still
This right
correct?
here is our last year.
Oh, this is our last year.
2024 is our last
Oh,
year.
2024 that we're planning for
Right,
is
right
our
now.
last year of the transfer. And we will have met the goal of the water fund
Standing on its
being
own.
self-sufficient.
That's the goal. So let me see so let me see. So this is the expenditure side, okay? So now let's go to, this right here is our, as we just discussed, this right here is our debt service, right? We can see 2021, 2022, 2023. Look at, we drop here in this 2024. Next year, 2025, we drop an additional $370,000, right? So this year we dropped 370,000. Next year we drop 370,000. And again, I gave you just a snapshot of what our what the loan number is, when we have to pay them, we pay them every 6 months, what the annual debt service is currently, and when they mature. So I wanted to provide that too. But after 2025, it kind of stays because we have some, we go out to 2037. On some of these maturities. So. This is our fund balance. We will have 120 days of unrestricted fund balance. So what does that mean? So what I do here is I take what our expenditures are, right? Divide it by 365, right? And then divide that into how much cash we have. And that will tell me how many days of work. You can almost look at it as like working capital, right? If no other revenue came in, we could pay all of our bills for 120 days.
For 4 months, yeah,
Yeah.
and that was the standard that our consultants, Raftelis,
Yep.
recommended, and I believe that's the low point, right? After 2024, we actually, the projections are that it will actually be more than 120 days,
Yep.
20 day, more than 4 months. So 2024 is the bottom point, and then
Yep.
it should only go up.
Yep, exactly. And you can see there the restrictions, right? We do have a restriction for debt service. Okay. Now going into the future, we'll have to obviously talk with legal because I don't believe that we can remove that from our millage rate just yet. The reason why is because at the time when we took out these loans, this fund was not healthy enough to act as a security, as a collateral, as a form of collateral, because it wasn't being self-sufficient, right? You go to the bank and you go, look, I'm losing money here. I can't, so at the end of the day, our goal is to make this self-sufficient, make it stand on its own, make it produce enough revenue for itself to not only cover its operating expenses, but also cover its debt service as well as any covenant. A lot of times they'll put covenants in there that you'll have to have revenues minus expenses, and you'll have to show that you have 20% more than your debt service. But here's the great thing, our debt service is going down. So again, we'll be able to show that in 2025.
But that money we collect goes to the general fund. It just means we don't transfer it to the water. So it's money that goes to the general fund.
Right, right now, until in 25, then we're not collecting it at all, and it's just water rates only.
No,
supporting.
but what he just said, which is true, it's not like our debt millage goes to zero, that's for water.
Right.
It stays at that, whatever amount that was, because we have all those.
Right.
We have the operating 3.2, whatever, we have the debt, for the fire 0.199,
Mhm.
and we have this one.
Right.
And that stays, like he's saying, even though water is self-sufficient and
Right.
paying for that, it's not like I'm repeating what he just said, you can't just wipe that debt millage away. But it means we don't transfer it from the general fund to the water anymore. So then that money just stays in the general fund, correct?
Yeah,
Isn't that,
well, yeah, that is, right, but.
so what happens to that money? If it no longer gets.
If we're
transferred-
no longer collecting it to cover debt service, we don't collect it, and it doesn't stay in the general fund.
But that's why I said earlier, we'll have to talk with legal to see if we can get them to restructure it, or what we'll have to do is part of the plan. But we'll definitely look at that this time next year.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I guess I'd be interested to see what that.
Yeah, my interpretation is that once the revenues that we collect off the rates, it would cover the debt, and we would no longer have a debt service millage applied to residents anymore. We wouldn't collect that money through the debt service millage.
Right.
You would use the
he's-
rates to cover it.
Yeah.
And he's saying he's not sure you're allowed to do that because when they did the underwriting of the loan, it was based on,
It's a
Ad-
covenant of ad valorem pledge. I think you could do an ad valorem pledge and not do a debt
Have a
service
debt
millage, but
service.
we have the ability to do a debt service should the system fall into disrepair, or rates aren't collected, or we can't sell enough water. We could always migrate back to a debt service millage rate to collect those dollars. Because we're basically pledging the full faith and credit of
the town.
the town
Right.
to support it.
Right.
Now, if the rates can pay for it, that's great. But if the rates can't, then we have to step in either through a debt service millage or just a general fund allocation.
Okay, so that's something you'll look into.
Yeah, we'll work.
And get back to us
Yep.
about that.
Yep.
Now, how did this fund do? We're on 26. How did this fund do based on our 5-year forecast? So our 5-year forecast, again, this one here, we're running a little bit over our 5-year forecast, about almost 4%. But a lot of that has to do with the operating expenses. You can see the operating expenses. That's what's driving it. It's the inflationary rates. It's a chemical cost. It's equipment that we have to keep on putting into this, and that you can see as plain a day, which is really throwing us over on this one, but we're still in line. I would say, I think out of all the funds, I think this one here was the one because of the inflation pressures that we're seeing. But we're still in the ballpark. So we'll adjust accordingly.
Although you're reducing your number over the 5-year, in the 5-year plan.
Yep. And again,
because of
the,
debt.
right, yeah, the debt service, right.
Is it anticipated that if we have to do major work on the water sewer plant and we get a referendum allowing us to do it and we take out a loan, that we would be able to cover that loan through the water sewer fund without having to come into the general? Right.
That is the idea, right? That is definitely the goal, as we back up here, what the rating agencies look at when they rate you for that is they look at your fund balance in here. Right now, we have almost 58% of our funds in this. Oh, by the way, keep in mind that we transferred out $574,000 from this fund to the general fund as part of the ARPA our last meeting, remember we said that, hey, listen, we've got to spend this money. We have to spend this money. This is the fire department is our priority project. And so what we're doing, we're not taking all of it. We're taking a portion of it from the water and from the sewer, and we're bringing it back over. So that's what that is. But the other thing too, is that they also look at your days. That's why we want to track how many days of unrestricted fund balance do we have? And then they want to look at your revenues minus your expenses and how much drops to the bottom line and how much of that can cover the debt service. So, yeah. So again, I think this fund here, we're in line. We expected to be at 4.5 million. Right now, our preliminary budget is at 4.7 million. The driver of that is obviously our operating expenditures and the fight that we have with inflation right now, and that's in that fund. Sewer, same idea. Here is the revenues, what we're thinking about. Let me fast forward. I'm on slide 28. You remember we saw on the water side, we saw that water was 23 or 25%. We saw the increase in gallons, right? Well, this makes sense, right? You're seeing the same side on the sewer side, right? So compared to prior year, our sewer treatment is up by 24% through the first 4 cycles. You know, you can see that through cycle 4 in 2022, we were at 163 million gallons that we sent over to Delray to process. And currently we're at 202 million gallons. And so, and again, that's why I put there nearly identical to the water, you know, which is really a good thing. And that's what you would expect to see. I wouldn't expect to see that on the irrigation side. Right? Because not all irrigation we have a separate meter. We don't charge the sewer side of life on the irrigation, right? Because it's not being treated. It's going through the aquifer. And so you would expect that. So this is normal what I would be seeing. So again, the expenditures, we have the increase in operating expenditures based on the contract. We have an interlocal agreement with Delray. Delray treats all of our sewer. We also increased here our capital expenditures. I'm on slide 29. So we increased our capital expenditures here because we knew that, hey, as time goes on, obviously the sewer side of life is a little bit more corrosive than the water side of life. We have, I think, 6 lift stations. Is that correct? Yeah, we have 6 lift stations, right? We have pumps in those lift stations. What do those lift stations do? They transfer the treatment from one lift station to another lift station to another lift station until it gets to Delray for processing. And so those things there, we look at pumps, we look at the panels, we look at raising them. So what we did is we increased that capital expenditure from 225,000 to 450,000 in our preliminary budgets. And this system here has a healthy fund balance. If I'll go to 30, right? It has about 309 days of unrestricted fund balance. Why do we have so much more on sewer than we have on water? Sewer is a much more harsher environment. Things break, it's a bad day, right? If I've got an overflow of water, no big deal. It's a lot different when I have an overflow of sewer, okay? It's night and day. And so you want to have a little bit more in this one because, you don't want to be reactive to emergencies. So I would tell you that, yes, spending a little bit more money on capital improvements is very wise for this type of fund. And having those extra dollars in this fund is wise as well. You will also notice too, that I've accounted for, obviously, the transfer to the general fund that we did at our last meeting. Some of the ARPA funds we moved over. Yes. Yes.
2030, it's a 3% or 3.5% annual increase. I don't know that Delray, if we just use their system, it passes through Delray to the South County Regional Treatment Facility. So basically Delray just allows us to use their system to pass through to that regional facility. But 2030 is the date we would have to renew.
Yep. Are you on the water? Are you on the water or sewer? Oh, okay. Yep. 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 Let's see. A lot of that is taken up by operating expenditures. You know, yeah, for water, right. You can see on slide 23, you know, personnel, you know, we have about 5% rate increase in there. We took out a little bit less, obviously, for our debt service, but really it's the operating expenditures. It's the fight of inflation. It's the chemical, it's the chlorine cost, it's the filter cost. If you've ever had the opportunity to take a tour of our water treatment plant, it's extremely sophisticated. We have some of the best water here, right? And yeah, and so with that, you know, we're starting to see inflationary pressures. Yep. So as we summarize, just to summarize, let's go, how do we do on the, right now, you know, the sewer fund is easy to predict, right? Because the sewer fund, if we stay with our capital plan and we stay with our operating expenditures, because we know it's the city of Delray, right? Then right now we're perfectly in line with our 5-year forecast. So the last page is page 32. Slide 32, I'm sorry. So overall, the budget is going to be around $31.5 million for this year, right? And we know that the lion's share of that is that $4.8 million for capital outlay, right? But here, this slide here shows us very succinct our general fund. You have your revenues here. You have your expenditures here on the bottom. Here's the discretionary sales tax. Here's the building fund. Here's the water fund, and here's the sewer fund. So you want your total sources to match up, you know, your total uses or expenditures right here. And something else new that we obviously have this year that we didn't have in previous years is, you know, we have debt service, right? We have debt service because once we start pulling that money in at the end of December, you know, we're going to have obviously debt service payments coming in. So I know that's a lot to throw at you. We will have a lot more discussions with this going forward. This right here is a preliminary. It's based on actual data through April. Most line items forecasted straight line on, especially on the revenue side, is very conservative. On the expenditure side is a little bit more aggressive. But it gives you an idea as to where we think we're going to be landing. And what it also does is it says, okay, with that restriction of the cap on our millage, on our pledge to the residents of maintaining that millage, can we fit into our budget with what we need? And at this point, I would say, yes, we can. We'll be coming back. We'll meet with the finance committee, I think in July 16th. I'm sorry, July 27th. We'll go through these numbers again. The next time I talk to you about this will be in September. I'll have refreshed number.
No.
Sorry.
So you'll hear from us again in July 18th when we set the maximum millage rate. Then we take it to the Financial Advisory Board. Based on some of the feedback we received from you folks in the FAB, we have a tentative budget workshop if it's necessary, depending on the feedback, comments, how things kind of move forward.
Yep.
And we'll go from there. And then in September, we'll have the formal draft budget, tentative budget, and the final budget.
Do you have a page for the building fund balance?
Building fund?
Isn't there, it seemed like every fund had a balance slide.
See,
Just didn't know if shouldn't there be a fund balance slide for the building fund?
Yes, there should be. It is healthy and I did not put it. in,
Okay,
but
so maybe the
I
next,
apologize.
if
Yes.
you could include that.
No,
that'd be
good, good catch. I will put that in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I guess it's time for comments now okay, so if anyone wants to start? Go ahead.
Well, I'm very impressed with the management of this budget, very forward-looking, conservative, healthy. And there's room in there.
Yeah.
Plenty of room. For adjustments, inflationary concerns, unexpected interest rates, maneuvers by the federal government. So I applaud you. This is very good, and I look forward to really getting into the weeds, digging into these numbers further. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, David. That was, explained a lot of items there, a lot of notes written down. I just curious about the millage rate. Do you figure out our own millage rate here, or I was reading some articles and they say a lot of municipalities pick the county rate and they use the county rate? You use your own.
Exactly. A budget is the appropriation of expenditures. That's what a budget is. Okay, now, we have to match those expenditures with the revenue. Where am I getting the money from? Right? Or if I don't do that, then I'm constantly pulling from reserves, right? That's always my plug figure there, right? Just like your household, right? You make a certain amount of money in, if you have so many expenditures and, your car transmission is blown or whatever, then, all right, we didn't foresee that, we got to pull that in. So very, very similar. But so what we do is, right, we look at what our expenditures are needed, what the request of the departments are. The town manager sits with each of the department, looks at what the priorities are, especially with capital. Listen, we can forecast most items, right? We can some things are a little bit more challenging, right? With insurance. We got closer and we will continue to get closer with these numbers come the next meeting that we see you in July. Matter of fact, July 1st, right? The property appraiser will have their final numbers. So again, this is very preliminary. This just shows you kind of what we're seeing, what we're seeing out there. But to answer your question directly, no, we go based on what our expenditures are for our town.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
thank you, David. This is excellent, and I like that we overestimate our expenditures and underestimate our income.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a buffer from both ends.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go to waste. So, thank you.
excellent presentation. I believe you answered all the questions extremely well. And hopefully that maximum rate, which will be put into effect, is maximum, maybe we can do a little better.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, excellent presentation, very thorough. Thank you very much for taking the time so you go through each thing and you make your own estimations and assumptions and
Yep.
so thank you for being so thorough.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely agree with your level of conservatism on both the revenue and the expenditure side. And I appreciate that you always check yourself. I mean, that's pretty nice that you put those slides in there to see how well your projections.
Well, I knew
were.
you would
Not
ask that,
every
right? I
professional
knew
does
that was gonna be the first question. David, how did we
That's right.
do on the,
A lot of people don't
so-
want to do that. So thank you, for showing us
Yeah.
that.
No.
And I think that really the benefit of that is just to improve your assumptions going forward, so with every year,
Yep.
you just fix those projections. So I think that was really good. And yeah, to me, it looks really good to me. I like, to me, it all kind of filters down to the fund balance.
Mhm.
And I like the way the fund balance is shaping out to be. So it all looks really good to me. So hopefully the tax base will inch up a little bit more. That gives just a little bit more breathing room. And it looks to me to be in really good shape.
Good.
So. And then I guess July 18th is also when we would approve the next water, officially approve the 8% increase
Yeah.
for the next cycle,
Right.
which has to be done before August 1st.
You know, I've worked at some organizations that approve a 5-year rate schedule. And then what they do is they have that in queue already. And then if there's a reduction, then they'll have a meeting to reduce that. But as
Okay.
it stands, but no,
Well,
we'll
I
look
guess
at
we
it year after year.
tentatively have an 8%
Yep.
future going forward. It's nothing official, but
Right.
it's kind of what we've put into our projections.
Yep.
So I kind of like the way we're doing it.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
okay, great. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we open it up for public comments. Do we have any public comments? Yeah, you want to come forward? Go ahead. This is general public comments, but if you have comments for a specific item on the agenda, you can wait until then. Okay, if you want to state your name and where you live.
Hi, so it's Tim Rotolo, 3400 Ocean Boulevard. Come before the commission before talking about the shared path outside. And, you know, you got some new members here since then. But the issue is, as I've spoken of before, that a lot of the people don't understand that it's a shared path. And so I ride my bike on the path a lot. And the people seem to think I should be out in the road, and they're not afraid to tell me that I should be out in the road. And so I try to educate them on the fact that it's a shared path, and they just come back at me with, go out there where you belong and things of that nature. And I understand there's a big project coming up to redo the path, and I guess part of that is that the bike path is on A1A is a high priority. So I had suggested in the past that maybe you draw a line down the middle of the path, whether it's dotted or solid, white, yellow, red, because people tend to spread out with their coffee, their leashes, their phones. And as much as you want to let them know you're coming with a bell or a horn, they just really don't want to get out of the way. And so I think at least having a line down the center of the path would help them to understand that maybe they should stay to one side and let others pass. You know, at times the people get so vehement about their position that I felt compelled to go to the police, and the Highland Beach Police are the ones who actually recommended that I come and speak to the commission about this. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments, any that are submitted? Okay, hearing none. We move on to announcements. We have some board vacancies. Board of Adjustment and Appeals, we have 2 vacancies, all for 3-year terms. We have a vacancy for an unexpired term ending September 21st, 2024. For the Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board, we have 2 vacancies for unexpired terms ending April 30th, 2024. So upcoming meetings and events, for the 4th of July, Town Hall is closed in observance of Independence Day. July 11th at 1, we have the Code Enforcement Board regular meeting. July 13th at 9:30 in the morning, we have the Planning Board regular meeting. And then our next meeting of the Town Commission is July 18th at 1:30. There are no board action reports at this time. Moving on, ordinances. We have a proposed ordinance, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending Article 2, Technical Codes of Chapter 6, Buildings and Structures by amending Section 6-20, Property Maintenance Code to adopt the most recent edition of the International Property Maintenance Code, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability and codification, and providing for an effective date. And I guess we have our building official to present this item.
Yes, this should be a pretty quick one, commissioners. Good afternoon. Town Manager Labadie. So we've already had the International Property Maintenance Code adopted long before I got here. And when they adopted it, they just adopted it across the board. And there's a couple of little things they have to fill in when you do that. That wasn't done. So I thought this was a great opportunity to just update to the newest cycle. These come out every 3 years. We are currently under the 2012. There are really hardly, not many changes in it. They make some minor adjustments as the times change and, you know, lessons are learned. But this particular code has been adopted tens of thousands of municipalities across the United States. It seems to be the golden standard. And it's in addition to our already existing ordinances that we have in place for property maintenance. Okay. So all we're doing here is just going from the 2012 edition to the most recent, which is 2021. 2024 will be the new one that'll come out. And we're making just a few changes in it where we're adding our name, talking about where our code of compliance comes from, setting some dates for, you know, minimum temperatures that we have to maintain and little things like that. And, you know, how long, you know, grass and weeds can be, which matches what we already have in our existing ordinances are existing. So we have a little overlap, but that's it. This is just an update to a more recent version and doing it properly by filling in all of the blanks that were not filled in the first time. That's it. Pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion, any questions?
No questions.
I got a question, Jeff. I see they have a low temperature. Do they have a high temperature recommended? Or
No, this is, I guess, because then you're gonna force people like landlords to install air conditioning where you can have fans and open windows and have proper ventilation. So there's stuff in there about, you know, proper ventilation so
Right.
that people have the ability to get fresh air into the home. But I think the concern is that if we have like a cold spell coming through here, or if you're from the north, that you have a landlord who has the ability to, you know, that must provide at least a minimum amount of heat. That's it.
I'd be in trouble. I keep my heat at 65, so. All right, thank you.
That's it.
We do this with the Florida building code as well periodically. We update to include whatever changes they've made.
And we will be doing that for the end of this year, because we're going to another 3-year code cycle with the state of Florida. The state of Florida Building Code actually recognizes the International Property Maintenance Code, and they actually added a section that refers to it now, which is really good to show you the legitimacy of this. And yeah, so I don't think we need to do this every 3 years. Unless there's some sort of a major change that I think is necessary. But now that we're about 11 years old and several code cycles behind, and we needed to add in those additional, you know, dates and so on and so forth, it was just that time, it was just good timing for it.
So this is dotting i's and crossing t's.
That's all we're doing.
Thank you.
I have no issues with it, thank you.
Neither do I. I'm in favor. So if we could have a motion, please.
I move that we accept the ordinance of the Town Commission of Town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending Article 2, Technical Codes of Chapter 6, Buildings and Structures by amending Section 6-20, Property Maintenance Code to adopt the most recent edition of the International Property Maintenance Code, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for separability and codification, and providing an effective date.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And,
No,
oh, we need a
do
roll
a
call. Okay, go ahead.
Commissioner Goldberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Peters,
Aye.
Commissioner David,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Stern,
Aye.
Mayor Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion carries unanimously. Excellent. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. So we have the meeting minutes of May 23rd, 2023 and June 6th, 2023. Any issues with keeping this in the consent agenda? So if we could have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll
I
that.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to unfinished business, the fire rescue implementation update.
All right, chief, this is you.
Commissioners, Mayor, city manager usually does a preamble. I'm waiting for him to do his preamble and then I'm up. A couple of updates for you. Our recruiting goes well, not as well as I anticipated, but we're doing pretty good. We have about 14 firefighters on our list. We need a few more than that to actually close it out, so I'll probably keep it open for another month or so. Firefighter drivers, we need 6. We have 5 on the list right now, so again, we're probably gonna leave that open for another 30 days. Captains, we only need 3 and we have 27, so we'll figure that out. So we'll probably close out the captains at the end of this month and then begin sifting through the applications doing that. Construction, the contracts for the GMP is about 90% sold. They expect to have it 100% sold by the end of this week. So we have subcontractors picking up the contracts for all the work in the fire station. That's about 90% right now. We're looking to have 100% by the end of this week. Foundations are in place, the wires are in place, the inspection and the rains have us delayed. So we're gonna pour today, pour the concrete for the foundation, but we had to delay up until Friday because of some of the rain, some of the other inspections, they found some deficiencies, so they corrected them. And so we're gonna do the entire pour in one day. So Friday you'll see a lot of concrete trucks going in and out the entire pour for that day. As with the building department, we're bringing a draft of the fire prevention code to you. Remember when we did that a year and a half ago, I said it's on the 3-year cycle with the state. One we did was a preliminary one. So our new fire marshal, community risk reduction, assistant chief of community risk reduction, Mr. Matt Wellhoff, has been diligently working on an update for the, get this ready, go to the state fire marshal's office by the end of September. So we're presenting to you for initial comments in July. Hopefully we get get the ordinance passed before the end of September, so we can send it to the state for approval. And then come back to you for final approval when it comes back from the state. That's all I have. I'll be very more happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have questions? I do have a question, but
No questions for me.
Too easy.
No, no,
Thank you,
thank you.
I do have a question. So, there was a comment previously that we don't really have great service data from Delray on the calls, the fire calls. So will you be, keeping track will we have better service call data on the services that we have in Highland Beach? Can you tell us a little bit about the data that you'll be maintaining on the service and on the services and how it compares to the service information we have now?
Well, I wouldn't say we didn't have reliable data from
Okay.
Delray. They gave us a lot of data. Some of it was from there in town and some of it was not fully, you get a lot of numbers, but we have to have faith in those numbers that they are actually accurate. And so I would say we had the data, but we couldn't rely on it. We had to go through and kind of suss out what was ours, what was theirs, that. So the way we've addressed it in coming up for our system is that we've purchased a platform that we're going to put all our data in. So it's going to be one platform. We're going to get the data from dispatch, from fire prevention, from building surveys, and then put it in one platform. That way we could better analyze the data and communicate with different divisions. For instance, if a firefighter goes out and sees a code violation that is life threatening, he can put an exception report right in that report, and the fire marshal will see it immediately to address it. So we keep track of all the data that's coming in and be able to do a lot of back room analysis, back office analysis on it. And we also have a lot of data coming from the state. The problem is that all of our legacy data belongs to Delray because they were our service provider. It's going to be interesting to see whether we can get all that old data so we can make some planning decisions based on that. Although it's not as reliable as it could be, it still would be useful to help make good decisions. I mean, the numbers we're getting so far is around 700 calls a year, but 500 of those are EMS, and about 20% of the calls are box alarms from alarm panels, auto accidents, and pedestrian versus vehicle, those kind of things. So we're looking at around 700 calls a year. And so I don't think it's gonna be that high. I think it's actually gonna be lower because I think they commingle some of their calls into ours. But it'd be interesting to see if we get those numbers when we suss them out, what the actual numbers are. So to address some of those issues, we're gonna create a platform, not create, but purchase a platform, set it up so that we have more accurate data. And now that the state is doing what's called a biosphere, they collect all the EMS data, it goes up to the state level, and it's in a huge database. So you can compare yourself not only to what you're doing in your town, but to anybody else in the state that is comparable. And so you have the outcome data from the hospital, so you can see how the paramedics are doing. We have data from the response times, so you can see how we're doing compared to Delray, Boca Raton, and all that stuff. So maybe a year or two into our service, we'll be able to compare ourselves and see where our deficiencies are. Because that's kind of why you need data. You want to be able to compare yourself and see by getting that feedback, you could fix things along the way. And could all the way down to the paramedic. One paramedic is only getting his IVs on the first try, then we probably need to train this guy, or is it the equipment, or is it the situation, or what have you. So the only way you could improve the service delivery in an objective way. I mean, everybody can say we're great, we're the best, we're great, we're the best. But unless you could objectively say with data, that is not your data necessarily, but state data that, hey, compared to everybody else of our size, we're doing it that much better. That's the only way to do the objective. So our goal is to be able to collect that data, number one, analyze the data and use it for feedback for our service delivery model to see where we can improve. Because, you always got to improve. That's the Toyota way, do a little bit better every day.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that once
Sure you are.
when we have wheels hot, and how, that performs.
We're toying with the idea of actually presenting some of the data in the dashboard. So if anybody wants to see what's going on there, you can see. We can give you data about who's there and what address and all that stuff. It'll give you like hot plots through the map and show where certain things are happening. One of the issues that is interesting around the country and in this area is falls. So one of the things we have to address early on, I think, because of our demographic, is looking at fall prevention and fall prevention initiatives. So we want to track those things, and we can do it based on, age, medication you're taking, because again, all that data from the medical is going up into this biosphere. We don't know who your name is, but you can see that, hey, they're taking this drug at this age, they tend to fall this many times. So we've actually addressed that through public outreach, and that's why the community risk reduction is going to be leading that initiative, to make all these things happen.
Yeah, it's a huge benefit, that community outreach that we'll have now as our own department. I'm really excited about that.
And so am I. I think we could do a lot of good things
Yeah.
with that kind of data and that kind of outreach, public education, and having the presence, being somebody you could call and say, hey, Chief Joseph or Glenn, I have this problem. How do I address it? And then you know who to, and if I don't answer your question, then of course, my town manager won't have to get on my case about it. And if not, the mayor will certainly get on my case about it. So having that accountability is also important for the community as well as for us as the service providers.
Absolutely. And with the RRR, the FDOT project coming, I know emergency personnel have to deal with construction all the time. I obviously want to see us launch with great success. So what are your plans, with the road obstructions that are going to happen with the FDOT project? How do you make sure that your emergency vehicles will get through when they need to and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I've already been invited to the planning of that project and the rollout, so I'll be going to all those meetings. And we've had those kind of construction projects in other places I've worked.
Sure.
And so there are ways around it, giving us priority. If you have a flagman, and obviously you're going to give the emergency vehicle priority over the other flag. Sometimes the flagman will actually stop other traffic and let the emergency vehicle go through to expedite the response. So there are ways of addressing it. It's just a matter of planning it and talking about it and understanding what the challenges are going to be and try to find solutions become an emergency. So it's a work in progress, if you will.
Mhm, mhm.
And on that, FDOT did make the commitment that we will have priorities at all times on that project. And with an FDOT project, their contractors tend to be a little bit more schooled, a little more professional to be qualified to do an FDOT project. So the flag groups, it won't be, like a small operation where their first time ever doing flags, they got a couple folks out there. They're, professional teams of MOT or, maintenance of traffic type operation. So I wouldn't be all that concerned about it. It's something for us to be concerned about, but we'll be there.
So yeah, what the manager said is actually correct. We have to think about it, to have a plan to address any issues and have a roadmap to address our concerns. But the day-to-day operations, this is done all the time, everywhere around the country. So what we have to do is have to have a clear roadmap. If we have a concern or have a problem, how to get that problem addressed. And so I think that's the most important part in being engaged in the entire process from the beginning. So I think we're there. I think we'll keep an eye on it, make sure everything's on the up and up.
Well, this is very exciting as we're getting to the finish line. It's
Finish line. we're
really,
here.
well, I know. Like, we're getting there. This year is gonna fly by and it's great to see the progress with the construction and to see the staff getting filled in, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, we're beginning some of our large purchases now because some of the purchases are 190 days of delivery. So so probably in the next month, we're gonna see some of the larger purchases start being actually put through the process. So 190 days is unusually long for any process, anytime in my experience. But so starting a little bit early to make sure we get everything there on time, is the goal right now.
I think it's pretty exciting that you're going to be pouring concrete.
Mhm.
When do we actually see walls go up?
Well, the concrete is going down, then they do the foundation, fill that
Right,
in. So you
right.
have to fill in all the dirt to raise the level of the foundation up. Then they'll put the foundation in with wire, and then you'll see the wall start going up after that. So probably in about maybe 2-3 weeks.
Oh, quick.
They said they could have it dried out by the end of August, so
That's
before the
exciting.
hurricane season. So that's fingers crossed.
Very exciting.
It's
So
very
exciting.
aggressive, but fingers crossed, make sure, we'll work in the right direction. Fire station's coming.
Yes.
God help us.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you for the update. Okay, the next item, the Florida Department of Transportation RRR project update.
Yep. So again, they've reached out to Glenn, so they're working with Glenn on public safety elements and anything related to the fire station construction for access and ramping and things of that nature. They're moving forward. They've submitted a new round of plans. I'm getting those printed off for those that want to take a look at them. For most people, the plans don't look any different from the March plans to the May plans. They're just smaller, finer details to construction. But we did receive that. We'll start taking a look at those. I'm gonna send a contract over to Glenn and his team to look at with FDOT. We're just gonna go ahead and partner with them for all of the raising of catch structures and water valves. We're a utility to FDOT, so what they're telling us is that you're gonna have to raise 58 manholes in the project. We don't have the self-directed staff to do that, so they will do it for us, but we gotta pay for that independent item. So there's an escrow requirement. I'm sure Glenn's done it with other communities through FDOT and the federal government kind of making an arrangement. So we're gonna pay FDOT into escrow to raise all the manholes and water valves. We'll be there to inspect and watch it, but they'll have their forces. Otherwise, we have to, every time they get to a structure, stop the project. We have to mobilize our contractor, just have FDOT do the project and stay out of the way. And it's a reimbursable escrow. Pat doesn't think they're gonna do as much work as they believe. So we'll make a deposit and then they'll draw from it. And that's a next meeting or two. We'll have that for you. But otherwise, it's moving forward. There'll be a construction meeting. They haven't given me any dates, but as they'd indicated before in the fall, they're gonna, kind of start having another set of meetings to let everybody know what's coming. And they let the project, I think, in December, late November, December, award, January, February, start May, June. So it's coming too. So as soon as we get the station off, we have a little event, the pageantry, we back a truck out, back it in, whatever those events are from the station to the new station. Boom. And then all of a sudden the equipment shows up, they start tearing up A1A. So just to be a lot of activity going on. That's it.
Are there any projections as to our cost?
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
126 with the contingency, and it's a draw based on structures that come through the bid. So it was like 112,000 to move all of the structures and adjustments, and it's like 58 manholes, like 106 water valves. So, but it's 126 with the two contingencies they require. If they don't use all of it, it all gets returned at the end of the project to us.
Do we see that in the budget? You mean
No, I
5
just
years?
got that today. So David and I will work that into, it's a good call. We'll work that into the water and sewer budget and the capital cost, because we've kind of, like I said, capital will clarify over the next few months. That's one of the items there. We also have on capital on the tanks. We're talking to a contractor, preventative maintenance contractor, so it spreads our cost over time. So those are the clarifications that'll come, but we can handle it in the budget. It doesn't throw us, it's not like a major surprise because we are a utility, we have to do it. But our contractor would be expensive and I think would just slow the project. And what I've heard, the one thing I'm sure I've heard is faster the better on this project. So just let them self-direct their own forces to move through it.
Any other comments? Someone else?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. There is none. And town commission comments. Commissioner Goldberg, do you have anything?
I don't have any additional comments. It was very informative today. Look forward to working further on the budget. Thank you.
Commissioner
Yeah, I'd
Peters?
just like to say thank you, David. That was a great presentation and explanation, and I'm glad you're conservative. And I like the 5-year numbers on the 5-year plan. If I go to Vegas, I want you to give me some numbers to play. But I love reserves, and the more the berrier, and more the merrier. Thank you.
Commissioner David?
Thank you, everybody, for the updates. And otherwise, I have nothing. I think we're doing just fine. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Vice Mayor Stern?
Excellent updates. The only question I would have that going forward, we ought to check into now that the legislature results are in, is there anything that really is going to affect anything in the building department? I believe that our recertification and so forth covered just about everything. However, we should just get verification that there's nothing in addition that we have to look at.
Correct. I'll have maybe give Jeff come in at the next meeting, give a little bit of an update. Over timing was an issue, because we were one of the pioneers in the programming at the local level. So we kind of notified our condos pretty quickly. So we're trying to afford the condos a little more time in the process. The state was a little bit aggressive. So we're trying to work through their process because we still don't think they totally grasp the phase 2 components, which is the actual work. That's everybody nodding that are doing this work on their condos, right? This is big stuff. That's generally when you do phase 2. So I think Jeff's trying to squeeze out some more time, give a little more breathing room, Because if everybody's doing this across the state, I think there's gonna all of a sudden, some of our relate to the game condos, not by any problem of their own, but they just were notified that their time has come. Trying to find contractors could be challenging, or finding the engineers, things of that nature. So we're just trying to find any method to give more time for the condo folks to get that phase one milestone done, to get that relief in there. So other than that, I think the building departments were on point. Everybody's doing, if you drive through town, everybody's doing great work out there. The community landscape, I think our built assets are really coming along. Every time I see a project done, a paint job, it's marvelous. I mean, I see everybody nodding, I know how much you're paying. It's super expensive, but it really shows. These buildings that you thought were kind of looking a little bit time for renovation, the massive scale of this work, the buildings are turning quite beautiful, and we should all be proud. It's been great.
Yeah, and along that, if we could have an update on maybe the building recertification program for the buildings in Highland Beach, and then also on the Gulfstream contract, if we can have an update on that. So I think we all heard about the 250,000 appropriation that we received for the lift station rehabilitation. And so my request of the commission is that in order to express our gratitude, what do you guys think about a proclamation? And perhaps we can make sure it's a meeting when Peggy can be here, perhaps, to receive it. So I'm recommending that we do a proclamation to express our gratitude for receiving this appropriation. Do we need a motion or anything like that? Like, can we just do it?
No, I think everyone looks,
Agreed.
everyone's nodding. Yeah. We'll pull it together.
So as
And
far
we'll
as the
coordinate with
timing,
Peggy and
yeah,
her
when
team.
she can
Yep.
be here, for when Peggy can be here to.
And I'll invite Senator Berman and Ronald DeSantis to see if he'll come. He might be a little busy for us, but maybe he'll want to make a stop by.
But I definitely want to, this is the first appropriation that Highland Beach has ever received, and, I think it would be appropriate for us to express how thankful we are. I was approached by someone with the partnership development. They have a national fitness campaign, and I'm getting peppered with repeated emails. And so I thought I would bring it in front of us. And so what they're doing this national fitness campaign. I don't think it's really appropriate for us, but I just wanted to run it by everyone since they were requesting it. So it's a public-private partnership, and what they're trying to do is design these outdoor fitness courts. And so she's been asking me, whether or not Highland Beach would be interested in something like this. I think a real problem with it is it requires a lot of space, which we don't have. I don't really think it's a good fit for our community. We have a lot of nice, the walking path along A1A. I see people walking along the beach, so we kind of already have our own natural fitness here. So unless anyone has any comments, perhaps I can
No, I don't
just
think,
decline.
we don't have any place to
Yeah.
put
We
equipment.
don't.
I mean, none.
Right.
Unless you're gonna put it in the hole in the ground.
Right. Totally
So we really can't.
And our beaches are private,
perfect. Yep,
so we
Exactly.
really
Yep.
have no space,
that's right.
but it's a wonderful idea.
Yes, it is. I hope that they are successful, but it's just not a good fit for our town.
I think it would be nice for us to think of some kind of fitness. I mean, we have for a 65 and what is it? Our average age is 65. But there's a lot of activity here, walking, biking, jogging. So I think that if we do something to encourage fitness, awards, programs, days, maybe identify an event and specific days that may encourage in season.
Well, I think we have yoga and dancing here, don't we? Don't we have?
Yeah,
at
we
the
do.
library?
We do. The outdoor stuff, I mean, it's pretty cool. I kind of indicated the same thing that you're all saying. We just don't have the 10,000 square feet footprint to drop in some,
Right.
Lift bar station, box jumping. I mean, it's great, but we just don't have the space. I
Right.
kind of let them know unless they see something I don't.
We have
Um,
dancing?
Don't we have, didn't we have ballroom
Wait.
dancing?
We have ballroom dancing. We
At-
probably slowed things.
At the library.
Oh, we'll let you know. If you're interested, great. We'll kick it back up.
I'm on that
Um,
committee.
It's
Put me
programming,
For that committee.
it's programming, with the library, I believe.
Yeah, yep. So we do a lot of those things. We probably, during construction, we've turned down the events because of limited parking, but we're hoping to open that up. And again, I know I've talked with some of you, we also have to eventually start talking about what are we gonna do with the old station and converting that into some public use space out front,
That idea.
where maybe we could do some outdoor concerts there as well and kind of supplement that with our food truck community type events that were so successful to put back out front. So that's coming. We haven't budgeted for any of that, what it looks like, but we don't know what it looks like yet. So I've talked with our architects. They're gonna start doing some options and renderings. So you all can decide what you really want to do with that space.
Okay, great. Another item that I've kind of been looking at, and I'm curious as to what everybody else thinks. What does everyone think about possibly doing a special magistrate instead of the code enforcement board? Or perhaps consider exploring what it would mean for Highland Beach, like perhaps having it as an agenda item in the future that maybe town hall staff can bring to us. What are the pros and cons of having a special magistrate instead of a code enforcement board? So, obviously we can watch all these meetings, and I've been watching some of these code enforcement meetings, and there's some pretty high fines that are imposed on residents, and obviously it's residents that sit on these boards. And what I've observed is that, people come, they have these hefty fines, which is all in our documentation. And, they get cut, they get reduced. And I'm sure a lot of it's residents overseeing other residents, in position of fines. And I just wonder if perhaps we should consider doing a special magistrate, which would be a much more objective party. And I just wonder, maybe exploring some options to having a special magistrate oversee these types of issues instead of having residents.
Have there been issues raised as to conflicts of interest or negative impact from?
Well, I think that's something that
Results.
maybe could be brought to light if we have this issue on, on a future agenda item. We can, I don't really know. To me, it's just been, I've been trying to watch other board meeting videos, and it's just something that and I've actually heard rumblings of perhaps Highland Beach should consider a special magistrate. I don't know what other towns do. Have other towns implemented this? I fully don't know all the pros and cons of moving to this type of thing, but I guess my recommendation is to have it as a future agenda item for us to discuss.
I would be in favor of that. I know from, I think Dawn, and I, we're familiar in New York, we have a lower court. We have a magistrate's court that deals with this and other subjects.
I know we've talked about it in the past, and one of the issues was giving up control, and that's still true. However, one of the benefits is that you take conflicting personalities out of the mix, and you take grudges out of the mix, and it would be an impartial body doing the deciding. So I certainly think it's worth discussing.
Okay, so if we could please, go ahead, Vice Mayor, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As being a previous chair of the Code Enforcement Board many years ago, this topic has come up, and it's always welcome to come up this discussion. There are many pros and cons to this thing. So to put it on the agenda to rediscuss, I think is appropriate, but it has come up in the past, and we'll look at the history of those decisions and why.
Okay, so seems like we have consensus to, if you could please add that as a future agenda item. I don't know that it's a huge rush or anything,
Yep.
so wherever you think it's appropriate. And along the lines of reviewing our processes, so we had a resident who is requesting that we review our ordinance workflow. And I think it's a good idea. I think the ordinance workflow is something that has been handed down to us from previous commissions. And I think it would benefit us to, let's take a look at the workflow and kind of discuss it. I don't think there's a huge rush or anything, a meeting where it fits in. I don't know what y'all's thoughts are on taking a look at our ordinance workflow and perhaps trying to make improvements.
I saw that as well, and to be honest, I think his reasoning is faulty. I think that the way our workflow goes really does work for us. If something has to go to the planning board, I would rather have it go to them before we have major discussions, so we get their unbiased opinion, because I don't want to influence that. We can suggest what to look for, but I don't think we should let them know how we're feeling, because then it puts other information at us to be able to make a decision. I also feel that even though sometimes these ordinances, when they come, are quite strict, I think that's the way to go. I think you start with strict and then you go down and loosen it. If you start with loose, you're gonna miss things. And it's then a lot harder to go back and add them in. And then there are hard feelings, and it just becomes a very complicated system. So I would like to keep it where it starts out strict, where we have a first look and say, okay, well, let's clean this up a little, send it to the planning board, let them discuss it, and then send it back to us for the end discussions. It works.
Yeah, so I don't know that we necessarily have to recommend adopting the, what has been, but I think just the spirit of reviewing the process, and even if it is the current commission reviewing and saying, yes, this is the way we want to do it, at least we've vetted it. I think that's really the work, in my opinion, that's how I view the request, is that current commissioners review the workflow. And I actually, when I looked at the workflow, it does not specifically say, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but I might almost recommend, like, I liked that we started with a model ordinance. So it saves time on staff. Instead of us drafting something, from scratch. And I don't think the current workflow actually specifically states that. It doesn't, not that I saw that, you look for a model ordinance and then you start with that and then you go through anyway, that's really not really the purpose of me bringing this up today. It's just to have this as a agenda item that we can just discuss. And so
I agree.
okay.
I agree, Tim.
Okay, so if you could add that to a future meeting to discuss ordinance workflow. And I think that's all I had. So, town manager, do you have anything?
You wanna go, Glenn?
Or town attorney, sorry.
Okay.
I was gonna come back to you.
Usually not much, but a couple things today. First, as Commissioner Peter talked about, when we're in the budget process, the millage process, it's always interesting because our value is so different than a value of, let's say, a Belle Glade. And your millage of 3.5 is about what the county's millage is for fire rescue. So if you had Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, you'd be levying that millage for your fire services alone, $12 million. Where a community, I'll pick on Belle Glade, they're fine and know their budget pretty well. That 3.5 millage generates only about $2.5 million for them, but that's all they pay. So that's kind of the county's democratic way of everybody pays the same millage rate, but obviously a wealthier community is paying a lot more money. So that's why when David, Marshall go through the budget, so it's interesting, it's that classic math calculation, millage times value equal to the budget is. the mayor's point about the magistrate, I'll let you know that the vast majority of cities have moved towards the magistrate process. They generally find it more efficient. At least the perception is it's more impartial. Sometimes someone will complain that this person's a friend and they give me a favor. This person's not a friend and they're giving me a hard time. So you kind of eliminate that. It's usually a little quicker and more efficient because you have one person hearing a case and not five. You get one set of questions and not five. And we see more and more code cases getting appealed to court. And so it's generally good. And, you know, as Commissioner pointed out, in New York, there's a magistrate and you're appealing a magistrate's decision, generally a lawyer who hopefully made the right kind of findings on the record that are going to support you when you have your appeal. So in general, that's been the trend. I'm not going to say it's 75 or 80% of the cities in Palm Beach County, but I have a sense that it's in that range that they go that way. Some have started with an experiment. They maybe try to magistrate 1 month and the board another month. That tends to get frustrating and confusing because, you know, if this month you're in front of the magistrate and next month you come back, now you have a different, So if you're gonna do it, I'd say bite the bullet, whichever decision you make. And then finally, just something, a preview. I know we can work on an updated purchasing code and seeing emails here with Eric and maybe the next month or two, you should be getting a purchasing code, new purchasing code. That's all the report. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I did have one more thing. So we had that public comment today about the shared path. And that resident has come before us about the shared path. And I actually think, let's just go ahead and put it on the agenda, or I don't know, or address it. So we can at least vet it so that this resident can see that we have
Could
addressed it.
address it quickly.
Oh, you want to address it? Okay, go
Sure.
ahead.
So in order to put a divider down a pathway, technically under AASHTO, which is the design standard for shared use pathways, you have to have a minimum width of 12 feet. We're about 6 to 8. So you're going to double the width of the path. Plus you got to have 2 feet of free zone on each side of the path in case somebody veers off, whatnot. So you could do it, but you're going to be putting almost like a lane width of road as your sidewalk to divide it. And then you have to be cognizant of posting trail speeds because you have all the driveway disruptions. So you can't go at certain speeds on the pathway. So basically, if you're clipping into your bicycle, get on the street. Seriously, if you're clipping in, there's no place for you on our shared use pathways. It may be hard to say, but if you're going at those speeds, you're generally moving over 12 miles an hour. If somebody pulls out of their driveway, you're taking a dash dive, you're going right over the hood and it's not good. So there are requirements that FDOT would require in the right of way to do that. And you're going to expand your pathway by about 8 feet. And I don't know, again, going through the FDOT stuff, folks don't want more impact in the right of way. So that's the requirement. We could put some signage in, be cognizant, everyone's earbuds, dogs. It's tough for an adult moving on the bike path. You're going to run into that, but just slow down and do your best. We could do some educational stuff, try to get some stuff out to folks to just, keep an eye open. People can ride their bikes. It's kind of.
Okay, so that's our response. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to add it to agenda, I'm not saying not to, but it's basically what we would say is that FDOT wouldn't in the state standard is you got to widen that pathway out to divide it. Because then you're basically taking that and break it into 2 directional paths. And you almost have to reestablish a 6-foot path each way for that shared use.
So we really don't have space. So, I mean, we agree not to put it on a future agenda and that's our response. So we respectfully listen to the
If I see Mr.
input.
Rotolo out there, I'll grab him, chit chat, talk to him about it. I know Chief Hartman likes talking to him too. So we'll just be able to get a chance to reach out to him and let him know that, just there isn't the ability to do. We could do some education because you do have a right to put a bike on there. You just got to be careful if people just aren't paying attention. I don't know that you can stop that, right?
Ring your bell, that doesn't mean people have to get out of the way. It's shared.
Mhm.
And you have to understand that you are sharing as well.
We're also gonna have an extra foot on the regular bike lane.
You are. Maybe it's a little bit easier to use the A1A pathway now once you get on there. Cause I've seen folks that aren't clipped in and helmeted, just riding on the side of A1A. But I get it. In season, that pathway is busy. riding a bike down, trying to navigate folks. Cause it's also our social corridor. If you ever notice, people just stop, chit chat, let's talk. I want to see your dog. How you been? You could see people, congregating for long periods of time, which we want to encourage. So it does make biking. I understand his plight. It's hard to just simply cruise through there and tell people to clear your path for you. It's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, so in the spirit of listening to people's residents' input, we definitely want to encourage people to come here and provide their input. So I just hope, when you convey that message, just let him know that we did consider it, we're listening, and, this is our response.
I'll put a little piece, I got a pen today. I'll put a little piece in the manager's minute just to kind of let folks know that, hey, if you're on the pathway, people can ride their bikes, so just watch out. It's safety for the walker too, because if you're on the bike and you're going too fast, you can't stop, or you veer the wrong way, a car's going in the driveway. And then it's just Chief and his team out there, trying to sort out the screaming and arguing. So,
It's an important point that everyone brought out, that it is shared.
it is. I mean, we just gotta
They
be.
don't have priority on the path.
Got it. The only update I have is we did receive our GFOA, so now we're back in the game for our excellence in financial reporting. We missed a year. We had a little rough spot.
Excellent.
David got us back in good standing with the GFOA. Again, we're wrapping up our audit to our massive frustration with our new auditors, but they've indicated the first year with a new auditor takes a little longer. Everything looks clean, so we should be now in a continual good standing of excellence in reporting and budgeting. So we did get back into the good graces of the GFOA, and they're recognizing the good work David and his team is doing. So kudos to
I
David.
think that's excellent. Thank you very much. Excellent.
Other than that, I think we covered a lot of topics today. We're in great spot again, budget season. We don't have a meeting in July 4th. Not since holiday. So those going on vacation, safe travels. If you need anything, let me know. But again, the 18th, we're coming back. The 18th is a heavy load, so it's a long meeting. So hate to do that to you when we miss one, and then all of a sudden you got like double the work on the return date. But there's a lot on the 18th with the millage. Again, I know we're talking about ordinance flow. With fire, we got to expedite it a little bit. We're not afforded certain luxuries with a long drawn out process to change the fire code. So I do apologize that the fire team is going to have to push that code through a little bit quicker, on a quicker pace, and keep it with the commission to make sure we meet our mark and can get our certifications from the state. So with that, all good.
Okay, great. So we'll adjourn the meeting at 3:47. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.